Welcome to the Bath Fizz and Foam YouTube channel. My name is Robin French Smith, and today we're going to talk about how to make soapy sponges again. Yeah, that's right, kids. If you were here for the cold process soap sponges and now you're back because you want to learn how to make them with melt and pour soap, well then good news, because that's what we're going to do. That's literally the plan for this. Some of the differences between melt and pour soap and cold process soap, well, there's a lot of differences actually. But the main difference is that melt and pour soap is already finished the process of saponification, which means that when you use it, you do not have to worry about the whole lye safety thingamajig, the 200 degrees, all of that's the fumes, all those things that you might be concerned about with cold process soap. And most soapers that I know, or maybe not most, but like a ton of soapers that I know, started off with melt and pour soap. It is like the intro drug to soap making, okay? So a lot of people start off there. And so, they're like, and some people prefer to always make melt and pour. And there are some definite challenges and some definite differences when you're using melt and pour versus when you're using cold process soap. And particularly in the soapy sponges, I'm going to go over kind of the differences, and maybe not go over the differences. Maybe I will, but basically you'll be able to see that there are different ways of doing it. So first things first is that with the cold process soap sponges, the first thing I did was get my sponges and I took off the strings and all that stuff. Right now, in this instance, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be prepping the soap first. So I have a block of melt and pour soap. This particular melt and pour soap, I believe, is actually a surfactant-based soap, so it's not a true soap. There are some melt and pour brands or formulas that are true soaps. So you can still use true soaps. It's just harder sometimes with melt and pour. And if you don't know the difference or why that matters or anything, I talk about it more in the ebook. So there's going to be things I'm sure I'm vague on because it's a video, and I only have like 20, 30 minutes to kind of cram your head full of knowledge. Plus, I got to tell you irrelevant and irreverent stories to make it interesting. That's how we get you. So I'm just saying, I can't possibly go over everything in one video. It's not possible. Okay. But yeah, chippy chop it into little chippy chops and put it in there. And I'm giving myself, each sponge I want to weigh about 5 ounces. So I'm actually weighing out 5.25 ounces for each sponge, because you're gonna lose some, soap. Like, not lose it, but like, you have to account for loss. Okay, there's going to be soap that gets stuck on the spatula, right? Soap that's stuck in the bowl and stuff like that. So you kind of have to factor that in, and you should always, honestly, you should always do that. Here's a lid for a crock pot. It's not this crock pot's lid. And I have another crock pot. It's also not the lid for my other crock pot. I don't know what lid this is or somebody come get your crock pot lid. It is the only crock pot lid I have, though. And it doesn't fit either of my crock pots. I don't know. Okay, and now I am taking off the strings for my sponges. I did talk about doing this in the other one, did I? Anyway, look, the reason that I prefer to do it is that I don't like the sponge strings to get all like soapied up and stuff, but you don't have to do it. There's plenty of people who just leave the strings on and are careful. I'm not that person. Now, while we're talking about the sponges, I want to talk about something that's really, really important, okay? That top right sponge is a little bit different, right? It's a little bit different than its friends. And actually, I'm going to show you 3 months, 2 months, and fresh. What the heck does that mean? I'm about to tell you. So we had a customer reach out to us and ask us, they were like, hey, I got sponges X amount of time ago. I've had them from you, and they've been like sitting, and they are now discolored. Like, some of their color has faded. And this is why, number one, there's 2 things to take away from this, okay? as a small business owner, you can't like predict every single thing that's going to happen. Even if you test really, really thoroughly and you do like your best to, in good faith, do everything you can to make sure that you fully have like all the risks assessed for your product and like exactly how it's going to perform and stuff, there's always going to be this outlier or like something that you didn't think to test, right? So mistakes are going to happen or things like that are going to happen. Every single business that's going to happen. The responsibility though, as a small business owner or any business, honestly, a big business owner too. But anyway, look, the responsibility, the onus, if you will, is on you as a small business owner, like to listen to your customers. And so I'm not saying like every person that comes through and they're like, I don't like the way this smells. It made my hands dry or whatever. Like, okay, you don't have to listen to everything, but I do think it's always important to like take a minute to listen because there's always going to be things that you weren't prepared for, you didn't know. So we have a client who comes in. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not like about having a problem. It's about how you handle the problem. Okay, TLDR, long story short, whatever the kids these days are saying. It's not about the fact that you're never going to have problems. It's how do you handle problems when they happen, So we had a customer, she was like, hey, they're discolored. And we were like, man, we have no clue. Like we've had them, we've been selling sponges for like over a year. We've kept them in all different kinds of areas. Like we have some that we keep in a climate controlled area. I have some in my workshop that are like just out in the open that's not climate controlled at all. They're like exposed to sunlight and temperature fluctuations and all this stuff. We have other ones that are kept like in boxes. And so we just have like a bunch of different, like we have like 3 different areas where we store them, kind of depending on if they're going to be sold to the public, if they're going to be used for ourselves, or if I'm like currently about to use them, right? So we have like kind of 3 staging areas for where the sponges might be. And none of our sponges had discolored. So we were like, I don't know why that would happen, but we like tried to sit down and think about it. And I was like, okay, I'm assuming that it's some kind of like, some kind of oxidation or something of that nature is what's going on here, right? Like, so it's either reacting to light, so like either UV light maybe, or I don't know, but like it was weird because I had some that were like the ones I keep in my shop are like right next to my door. So the door gets opened all the time. Sunlight gets on them all the time. Like, anyway, we reached out to our supplier. Our supplier was like, yes, this can happen. And it's oxidation just from them being like in contact with the air. Okay. And so they were like, our suggestion is if you need them to store them for long-term use, then to put them in like a tub or something like that, where that's not going to happen. And it makes sense because in my workshop, I don't really have, like, they're all kind of opened at the same time. So even if they were, one of them or 2 of them were different, I probably wouldn't notice. But like in our long-term storage that we keep them in to sell them to the public, they're in boxes, but those boxes are lined with plastic bags or whatever. And then we close those up and then close the bag up, right? So I was like, okay, so that makes sense. And we were able to reach out to the customer and let her know. Now, the important thing though is that I had, as soon as the customer told us that was happening, I pulled one out, which is the one that I said was at the 3-month mark. I pulled one out and had it sitting there, just kind of being in the air to be tested. And then we got a new order in and I pulled another one out. That was the 2-month mark one. And I just wanted to compare it to the first one and we could see that there was a difference. And then the rest of them are just like brand new, fresh. I just like pulled them out today or the day I made this. So you could see like there was definitely a difference in the coloration. And you can even see like right now it's the top right and then the middle left. Those 2 are the different ones. Now, if I hadn't told you about it, would you have noticed? Maybe not. Okay, maybe not. But the most important thing is that when you add the melt and pour soap to it, oh, look at this glove. Look at this beautiful glove. It's such a helpful glove. Keep note of this because I'm not going to have it on when I need to have it on. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, once the soap batter is in the sponge, if it's cold process or melt and pour, once it's in the sponge and you have like the mic and all that stuff, you really can't tell the difference. Like, you can't tell the difference, but it is something that's good to know, you know? And so, you know, we reached out to the customer who said that. We were like, hey, we are so sorry that that happened. Thank you so much for letting us know, because it's not something we would have known unless a customer had told us that. And so as a small business owner, it's so, so important that you pay attention to, you know, when your customers have complaints or concerns. And instead of just being like defensive and being like, well, you must have been keeping it in the wrong place or whatever, to listen to them, because that's how you learn more about your product too. Okay, so all the things I didn't talk about when I was telling you about sponges that were discolored were the colorant that I used, which the first one I had was like too green. And so I changed it out for a different color. So I had Proud Peacock originally. I changed it out for Brilliant Blue. And you can see it's almost the perfect blue, especially once it's in the white Melt and Pour base. What else did I do? I added that color before all my little pieces of Melt and Pour were melted, because I wanted to be able to see the little chunks that were in there. So that was also useful. And I added my fragrance oil, which was a fragrance called Windjammer that is just such a naughty fragrance. It's just such a naughty fragrance. I love it. It's great. It's fantastic. It's just naughty. So I can use it in cold process soap. It's just not fun to use. And I certainly couldn't use it in sponges because it just moves too fast. So for Melt and Pour, it's perfect. So that's great. That's the other amazing thing about Melt and Pour is you can use, ignore that little chunk of soap. You can use fragrance oils that otherwise don't work very well in cold process soap, or like thicken up too fast, like work fine in cold process soap maybe, but thicken up too fast. Okay, here I'm having a panic attack because I just realized that I put all that soap on my sponge and didn't have my glove ready to go. So the reason I have that second glove is that you want to be careful with the temperature of the Melt and Pour. So with cold process soap, you can let the soap batter cool down before you start soaping with it. And that actually is beneficial because it keeps it fluid. But with Melt and Pour soap, you need it to be warm for it to be fluid. And I would venture to also say it's more than warm, it's like hot. You need it to be hot for it to stay fluid to work with. And so using something like kitchen gloves that are thicker are key to being able to do that. Now, Amanda has some gloves that are like way nicer than mine, and they give her fingers like more flexibility. And so you could definitely get better gloves than mine. Mine were chosen for the exact color for a costume. So there are probably better kitchen gloves to get that you could get, but these work for this. And unlike the cold process soap sponges where I had each sponge in its own container sitting and ready, for Melt and Pour, all you need is one container because you're just going to do one at a time. You're pouring the wet soap or the hot soap over the sponge one at a time, getting all the soap into it, and then moving on to the next one. Obviously, if you watch the Melt and Pour video, this is different. Yes, it is different, but if you watch the cold process one, it's different, is what I meant to say. With the cold process one, we had all the sponges ready to go. We poured a little bit of batter. We poured batter on each of them, and then we started squishing them in. So this is just a different order of operations. And this is one of the things that I learned from doing it, right? I learned from doing several batches and testing all these different things. If you have a different way of doing it that works for you, then by all means, do that, okay? This was just like, over my experience of time of doing it, I found that this was the best way. You're going to get, for me, I got the best results when I would do this. So you can do it a different way if you want to, but you're here for my opinion, man. Maybe. I think. Okay. And look, here's the thing. You don't actually have a ton of time to fiddle faddle like I'm doing right now with this freaking sponge. You don't actually have a ton of time to do that. You really need to be squishing that in. So you don't have time for the Melt and Pour to cool down because it cools down so fast. Okay, that's the other thing you have to keep in mind.
Okay.
It cools down so fast. And so you need to be ready to go, but you need to be ready to go in a different way than you need to be ready to go for the other sponges. Does that make sense? Okay. A lot of times with these, I use clear melt and pour and not the white melt and pour because I don't know. I can't remember if I like the way it looks better or not now. I can't remember why I did that. But I know that I specifically used white with these so that you guys, I know I specifically used white with these so that you guys could see the chunks in there, and you could see like when it was melted. It'd be harder to see that if it was clear. So that's part of why I did that. But yeah, this is honestly, it's super simple. It's super simple. I personally prefer the cold process soap ones. Okay. I like cold process soap more. I keep all the ingredients that I need for cold. Help me. I keep all the ingredients that I need to make cold process soap. I already keep those in big quantities in my workshop, so I can throw down and make cold process soap whenever I want to. Melt and pour soap, on the other hand, I have to order the base because I don't really keep a lot of it around. I live in a really hot, humid area, and it just doesn't work well for me. I know there's tons of people who love melt and pour. It works great for them. They use it all the time. And if you're comfortable with it and you want to use it, go for it. It is just as valid a way to make soapy sponges as the cold process way. And in fact, I would say that this is probably more common. I think I've more often seen them made with melt and pour than with cold process soap. But you can tell me if you think that that's true or not. But yeah, I think, it's what you're comfortable with. It's what you have access to. Like if you already keep a lot of melt and pour soap in stock, then just do it that way, Or if you're not comfortable making cold process soap for whatever reason, either you don't enjoy making it, or you're a hot process soap maker, or you want to be able to use kind of whatever fragrance oil you want to use, and you don't want to have to be limited to the specific fragrance oils that behave, right? Because this, have I told y'all the tale of Windjammer, which is the fragrance I use? It's a dupe of Sailing Day. And it's an amazing fragrance. It smells so good. And the first time I got some, I tried it in Freshies. Okay, we make a lot of Freshies, and so I tried it in Freshies and Freshie beads, and it did great. Absorbed into the Freshie beads, was wonderful, beautiful, huzzah! So I ordered it in bulk from our bulk fragrance supplier, and it didn't absorb in the Freshie beads. And I was like, what the heck? So then I used the same bottle that I had used previously from my other supplier, my original Windjammer supplier, and it also didn't absorb. And I was like, why? Because I was using the exact same beads and everything. And so ever since then, I've never been able to get it to absorb in Freshie beads. But it's like Bigfoot. Like I know it existed because we actually have a customer who posted at one point her Windjammer Freshie that she got from us. And she was like, I love this fragrance or whatever, this fish or whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, there's actual proof that we had a timeline shift or something, because now it doesn't work. You can't get it to work. Okay, this is the best thing about melt and pour soap. If you're asking me, which of course you are, other than the fact that once those sponges cool off, they'll be ready to go. The best thing about melt and pour soap is it's so satisfying to peel it off of stuff when you're done. So I just included this whether you want to see it or not, because when I was editing, I was like, I'm going to edit this part out. And then I sat there and I stared at it. And I just kept watching myself peel the little peelings off. And it was like, it made my brain go brrr and be happy. And so I just let it go. So sorry, if you don't want to watch it, just fast forward. Okay, you don't have to, but I like it. So here's the other things with melt and pour. Here are the reasons that I personally don't like melt and pour. Okay, I don't like the way it feels on my skin, but I also don't like in Houston where I live. Hi. It's very, very hot, very, very humid. It's basically my swamp. Technically, we're supposed to be subtropical, but I think that's a lie. I think we are just straight up tropical. Like when I was in the rainforest in Mexico, I was like, this feels just like home. Because they had warned me before I went. They're like, okay, we're just going to warn you. It's going to be really hot and really humid. And then I got there and I was like, oh. Or when I went to Puerto Rico and everybody online was like, oh, be careful. It's going to be so hot. It's going to be so humid. And I got there. I was like, oh, it's just like home. I don't know what's wrong with y'all. So it's pretty brutal here in Houston. And I also live right on the water. So it's hot, it's humid, and melt and pour / glycerin soap, whatever you want to call it, has a tendency to melt. It has a tendency to melt. So in heat, it kind of melts, It also has this thing called glycerin dew, which sounds so much prettier than what it is, but it's basically like speckles of kind of wetness, for a lack of a better brain word. My brain's not coming up with the words for it, but yeah, it does that too. So I don't really like it for those reasons, but it is really pretty. And I did start off, did I start? I started off making hot process soap, but when I started wanting to make pretty soaps, I started with melt and pour because I was like, oh, this is how you make pretty soap. And then I learned how to make pretty soaps with cold process soap. And I still sometimes will use melt and pour if I can, but it's really hard for me to incorporate because it just doesn't work very well for me. But that's it. If it works well for you, use it. Do it. Do it, girl. Get it. Okay? When I was mixing my colors in, I do think that I forgot to tell you this. When I was mixing my colors in, I used glycerin to mix my mica into my melt and pour soap base. You can use, in the ebook I talk about this, I'd say you can use glycerin, you can use oil, or you can use rubbing alcohol. Between those three, I typically prefer, if it's a bar of melt and pour soap, not going into a sponge, these are going into a sponge, I would typically choose rubbing alcohol because it doesn't add any extra goo feeling, like wetness or anything, to the melt and pour. So I'd usually use rubbing alcohol, but my second favorite and my favorite for the sponges is glycerin. So you could do it dry, but it's really hard to get the color incorporated in. Just my 2 cents, which is what you're here for. All right. In the other video, I talked about how my beading needle it had stabbed me several times, and then I had folded it in half, so it was janky. And I was like, oh, there's better needles that already have the loop-de-loo. And I was like, you know what? For this video, I'm going to order them from Amazon, and then I'm going to be that girl who has the things, oh, look at me. I've got the loop-de-loo beading needle set. And then they came in, and I was like, what's this clown show? What is this? They're like, who's running this Mickey Mouse operation, okay? They're so thin. They're too thin, okay? And I was having my doubts that these were going to work because that looks like an IUD or whoa, right? Am I wrong? This looks like they're just slippery, okay? But when I open it up, it reminds me of the IUD thing. Am I wrong? Anyway, so I was going to try it. We're going to see what happens. Here I'm showing you, I think some people asked about this in the video, but is the sponge still a little bit squishy? And the answer is yes, kind of. I feel like, and this could just be the way I do the melt and pour sponges, but I feel like for the melt and pour, they kind of feel like they are almost hollow, where you can feel a lot of the soap on the outside, but it still has the same amount of soap as the cold process ones. And they just do have a little bit more give, than the cold process ones. But both versions, the melt and pour and the cold process, both versions are going to be a little bit squishy, a little bit soft. Even the ones that I make that are super firm, they still have a little bit of give to them. And you kind of want that. And somebody commented on the other one that they don't like them when they're really stiff and hard like that.
That's what she said.
And if you don't prefer that, you want them to be like a little bit softer, you can rinse them in water and then like gently wring them out and then let them dry. And that process of wringing them kind of softens the texture of the sponge somehow. And it just makes the overall finished sponge softer. And that honestly was a problem because for me, because I didn't like the soft texture. And originally, when I had started making these, some of the only advice I had found on them was like, oh yeah, you definitely got to rinse your sponges first and let them dry. And then I found that I absolutely hated that. I hated the texture of it. And really, there's no reason to do that. Like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to sterilize them or anything like that. This is due to the way soap actually works and cleans your body, the mechanical actual functioning of soap. So, yeah, you don't really need to do that. Oh my gosh, my tummy just grumbled. Could you guys hear that? Hopefully not. How embarrassing. I'm hungered. When shrink wrapping these, I'm going through the same process as I did with the cold process ones, except I have my heat gun on a lower setting. So my heat gun has like the high, the turbojets, and then it has like this lower setting. So I'm using the lower setting. Now, typically when you are shrink wrapping melt and pour, you do need to be careful because it will melt. I think we talked about that. It will melt. But with the sponges, it's not quite as big a deal because it's like kind of encased in the sponge. And so it's not gonna melt really. I guess it could happen, but it's not as big a deal as if you were just doing like, bars of melt and pour soap. So just my opinion. Since I am using a lower heat setting, I can it does take a little bit longer, but it does keep the sponges a little safer and the soap a little less melty. But I meant to talk about this in the last video and I didn't, so I'm going to talk about it here. But you see how I'm just like kind of barehanding that? Like, like I'm living in the Wild West and I'm just like taking my life in my own hands and stuff. A lot of people, probably me included, would benefit from using a heat glove when you're actually like shrink wrapping because that thing does get very hot. And I don't use one because, number one, I've been doing this for a really long time, but also I have like, we call them barista hands in our house, but like we're just so used to holding hot things. Like we have held hot coffee and I don't know. Anyway, because we used to work Starbucks. I don't know. Sorry. That was literally not a flex. I don't know what I'm trying to show you here either. I like zoomed in and I was like, I don't know what I'm showing you. So just ignore it. And yeah. Anyway, my hands in particular are very used to being hot and they don't get burned very easily, but you can use a heat glove. You probably should use a heat glove so you don't burn your little fingers, okay? My fingers are immune to burns, so I'm safe. Okay, here we go with this little ridiculous sponge. Now look, after I filmed this and I was editing it, I realized that maybe what I was supposed to do was loop the rope through the needle first and then try to put it through with the rope and then put the needle all the way through or something. Maybe it would have worked if I had done it like that, but number one, it was a lot of effort to get, I quit. It was a lot of effort just to get that dang thing open. Like, I don't know. I wasn't happy with it. There's probably better loop-de-loo sponges. There's probably better loop-de-loo needles out there, but I ended up just going back to Jenks, my janky needle that stabbed at me many times, but she's there for me when I need her, okay? In the cold process video, I swapped out the strings for ribbon, and I'm not doing that here. I'm just using the regular strings. As a result, it is easier to pull the string through, and I don't need to use the pliers. If you do need to use the pliers, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the other video, okay? But you know what pliers are, right? Okay, if you do need to use pliers to help you kind of get more strength to pull the string through, then do that, okay? You can do whatever works for you. That is the name of the game. I'm just giving you ideas, okay? I'm showing you how I do it, but it's not the only way to do it. And that's something I had to learn a long time ago, is that just because somebody doesn't make iced tea the way I think that they should be making iced tea doesn't mean they're doing it wrong, okay? There's lots of different ways to do many different things. And so it's okay to do it a different way. And I just want you to know that. You have my blessing to go do it whatever wrong way you want to do it. I'm just kidding. No, yeah, for real. You can do whatever works for you. I'm just showing the way that I found that worked best for me. And I hope that it is helpful for you guys. I hope that you enjoyed watching this, that you learned some stuff, okay, that you're taking away with some smart stuff in your head and all that stuff. And stuff, okay? I want you to have learned and just grow and just be the best you. If you like this video or if you didn't like it, that's cool. You can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I don't care. Engagement is engagement, baby. I do care, actually. Please like it. Don't thumbs down it. Anyway, give us a like and subscribe. I'm supposed to tell you that in every video, and I forget in almost every video. So do that. Come visit us at bathfizzandfoam.com. We have all kinds of recipes and stuff. Come visit our support group, Bath Fizz and Foam Bath Bomb and Bubble Bar Support Group. Cosmetic thing. Gosh dang it. There's something with cosmetics in there now. We'll support you, huh? Come visit us on Facebook. Come visit us at the Soap Challenge Club. What? Yes, we do that. We make a challenge for soap. And go visit if you want to know more about making cold process soap. Visit Amanda Aaron, my co-owner at Love and Soap Studio. And if you want sponges, baby, come to scandaloussoap.com. Okay, but all of this together today is for Bath Fizz and Foam, for sponges, for you for sponges. Spongy you, soapy sponge you, happy making sponge you make. And as always, happy making.